So this is now a vlog. I don't know what vlog number this is, but so today's Friday, and I'm really excited about today. I'm really excited about the week. I was really sucking right now during the week. I was like feeling really bummed about work, but I want to tell you about a story about a deal that I was able to save. So, excuse me. So with a buyer, I'm representing the buyer, and we were able to go under contract with this transaction. So going under transaction with this contract for the seller. Geez, what happened was we were going back and forth, and eventually my clients needed to get closing costs paid for. So what happens is you can either ask for closing costs at that asking price. So it's like, the offer was, let's say for example, 500,000, and we will pay $500,000, but we want 10K in closing costs. Some sellers will say it's okay. Some sellers will not. And the reason why this seller in particular did not want to do that is because they just bought the home last year. And so if they bought the home last year, they weren't going to be able to take any money out of the property, because then they were going to be paying money. And they wanted to limit how much money they were going to be paying themselves, which makes complete sense. So then we said, you know what? We still need to get paid closing costs. Why not try to stack the closing costs? So stacking it, instead of 500,000, we pay 510, right? But then we're paying the $10,000 over the course of the life of the loan. But then they also net what they need to net, but we also get 10K in closing costs. So we tried that. We got under contract. Everything was looking good. The inspection went good. We didn't want to ask for anything in the inspection. The appraisal comes in, and the appraisal, that's when the bank decides, hey, because we can decide what we want to pay for it, the seller can decide what they want to sell it for, but the bank will ultimately decide what they're willing to loan on it. So then the bank was saying, you know what? Because what happens a lot of times is that, people will offer $1 million, and they'll have $1 million, loan, but they'll offer $1 million on a property that's $500,000, and the bank's like, I'm not going to give you $1 million on a property that's comparable to other properties that just sold for $500,000. It makes no sense. That's one thing. And so the bank came back and said, no, the property's not worth 510. The property is worth 500,000. And so there's a $10,000 discrepancy. And so what we do as buyers, we send them out. It's called a notice of low appraisal, and they can decide they will want to reduce the price. They can decide they will consent to reducing it a certain amount, or they can also ultimately reject that the notice of low appraisal. And so then we're left in a pickle here. So then the buyers can either decide we will move forward, we will waive our financing, but pay the difference. So then the buyers have to come out and pay $10,000 more. Or what can also happen is they can also terminate the transaction and say, I'm not going to move forward with this. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to pay 10K more. We were hitting that constantly. And so eventually we were going back and forth. And then my client, they were like, okay, fine. I think we can figure this out if we go back to the $500,000 that they were initially asking, and we just pay our closing costs. We will be good. We can move forward, and that's okay. So then I was like trying to make sure that this was figured out, because this deal was going to die if there was no way to be able to figure out how we could bridge that gap. And so the sellers, by all means, were saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this. They also had a cash offer on the side. And so I'm like, oh, geez, how do we do this for all parties? Because my buyers still want to buy it. The sellers still want to move. They still want to sell the property. So how can I bridge this gap? And so there was another way that we could do this, was get a different form, which is for us, it's called the, Form 34, or the general addendum, where we say, hey, you know what? We will go back to the purchase price being this number, which is the $500,000, and the 10K in closing costs will be removed. And so we went back and forth, and eventually the sellers were okay with that, because they said, you know what? This is our net. We're netting that number that we want to net, and the buyers are happy too, because they're not paying 10K in extra, right? And so we did that. I had a couple phone calls with the seller, or with the listing agent, a couple phone calls with my buyer, and then we were ready to actually write in the transaction, hey, this is what we're going to do, and we want to move forward. So we were able to save that transaction. So for you, buyer, if this ever happens to you and you're looking at, you're like, can I move the price a little bit, lower? Yes, but only if the seller is open to doing that as well, because the seller could have also been right there and could have said, you know what, I'm not going to do this. You decided to pay me 10K more, and you will either move forward and pay me 10K more if you want it, or you will get out, and I'll go with a different offer. They have every right. And back in 2020, when there was 5 to 10 offers on one house, that was happening, right? Where a buyer could say, because there was also another, I'm going kind of crazy here, but there was also another offer that you could do. In your offer, you could have an addendum that was an additional down addendum, which you could cover for whatever reason. If you went over, this was like 6, 7 other offers, and you went $20,000 over asking price, and you felt like it wasn't going to appraise at that, you could say, hey, I will willingly already in this offer, I will pay $2,000, $5,000 difference out of my own pocket, right? But thank goodness that the seller was like, I just want to be done with the transaction. I want to move forward. I don't care. They were willing to go back to that asking price. And my buyers are happy. Sellers are happy. We should be closing here in the next 2 weeks. So just know, buyer, if you're looking to try to buy a house and there is a low appraisal, there's a lot of different ways you can go around this, and not just having to kill the deal.